Lift Events and Experiences, known for Canada's #1 cannabis conference and trade shows, is hosting a full slate of events in 2023 and expanding to the U.S., and you're invited. Lift welcomes everyone from legacy participants to multi-state operators to everyday folks who enjoy and respect the plant. Join us in lifting the cannabis community together January 12th through the 14th in Vancouver, then Toronto in June, and San Francisco in August. Visit liftevents.com for details. That's liftevents.com.
It's a very specific industry that you have to have a lot of focus on in terms of what's going to happen regulatory-wise. So for Arcadian, the nice thing is our investors get a little bit of exposure to the ancillary side of that space. But a large portion of our portfolio actually is, in many other categories, as I was mentioning. So it gives a diversified hedged approach for the entire kind of natural wellness space in all consumer categories.
From the PodConx studios, high in the Rockies at the beautiful Beaver Creek Resort, it's the Raising Cannabis Capital Show.
Today on MJ Bulls, we are continuing the 5th annual Cannabis Investor Series, sponsored by PodConx, the cannabis industry's exclusive network of cannabis podcasts that actually allows companies to advertise. Go to podconx.com to connect to more cannabis listeners. On today's show, we're joined by another former guest, Matt Nordgren, the founder and managing partner at Arcadian Capital. Matt, welcome back to the show.
Hey, good to be here. Thanks for having me, man.
Well, it's your 6th time. This is their 6th time on the show. I think you're probably the most frequent guest we've had. And it was finally nice to meet you in person in Chicago at the Benzinga Capital Conference last month.
Good to see you there too. It was good to be around everybody. It felt like it was a well-tended event.
Yeah, and I felt like there's a lot of positive energy there. I mean, everybody's a little bit uncertain about where we are. And I want to talk about that with you today. I mean, if I go back to our first interview way back in 2018, investors have been on a wild ride. And there are a ton of factors that are unique to cannabis that have contributed to all this volatility. But when you combine those, I call them micro factors, with the macro factors like COVID or inflation, it's like so hard for the casual investor to know when to invest. Do you think that's why a lot of casual investors have kind of backed away from cannabis?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's just hard to navigate like any market that's emerging, which is why the way to do that is to invest with a manager who really is able to diversify and hedge those investments, but additionally work through them with the expertise that one has. I think most people will agree that the industry that is natural wellness and plant alternatives will continue to thrive and grow over the years. But how to do that is another question. No different than the late 90s, 99, 2000, 2001. You're better off investing with a Benchmark, an Andreessen, General Catalyst, one of these groups, so that you don't invest in MySpace versus Facebook. You just don't know today, and so you really need to be with a manager.
Yeah, you've said this to me a few times, and you also say that we need institutional investments or investors. And I know we're a ways away from that, but what has to happen to make institutional investors comfortable?
We need to see movement at the federal level, which we did. We saw with Biden last week. So that was a really helpful move, not just for what he did for the federal, convictions, but in asking the state level folks to do the same, and asking for descheduling and asking for a number of things. That really indicates the ball moving forward in a direction that we have all wanted.
Yeah. Do you think that will spark some other changes, or what are those changes that need to happen now?
Well, safe banking is the main one. So lame duck section, we have a really good chance of making that happen. And I think that's what everybody's looking forward to right now. But we have to be excited about the fact that this industry is uncorrelated in many ways to a lot of the broader market activities. I think we're seeing a lot of investors get a little bit more serious than they have with investing in Arcadian Fund, because a lot of these other sectors have variables that are a little bit harder to decipher in terms of the war or international supply chain, public markets. I think with the plant wellness space, you see an opportunity to invest where regulatory oversight is your main variable to consider. And when you see what happened with Biden and you see what's going on at various state level regulators, and when we see safe banking happening next month, when we see public market listings being something to follow, safe banking in an industry that has cash flow and jobs and taxes and assets growing at the pace it is, that's a very exciting time.
Yeah, I mean, I'll quote my daughter on this one. She says the industry's never going to be as small as it is today. It's an exciting feeling because if it's going to continue to grow, new states are going to come on board. The opportunity is going to be, it's just continue to be there. I want to talk a little bit about private companies because I know that growth capital has just really dried up for private companies. Do you feel that companies are now undervalued and maybe now is the best time to invest?
I think it is. We certainly believe that. Whether it's now or in the coming months, it's certainly an opportunity to invest. I would tell you that there's probably a little bit more pain in the market, but for CBD and plant alternative and biosynthetic plant-based products and people that service the cannabis and hemp space, I think perhaps you may be there already. So in this space, you probably can start to do some negotiations on where you want to enter a deal or how you want to lead a deal. But at the same time, there's going to be a 6-month period ahead that's going to be difficult to understand. So founders just need to make sure they understand that it's not going to let up soon, so they may as well go ahead and get their deal done today.
In other words, the prices aren't going to ramp right up, so don't wait. If you have an opportunity to do a deal, take advantage of it now because the window is not as wide open as it will be or it could be. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think the window is here now. I don't think it gets anything but better for the plant wellness space. Keep in mind, Dan, we don't invest in cannabis companies at Arcadian. We don't invest in plant touching cannabis. We invest in companies that support the natural wellness, plant wellness space at large. So when we think about investing, we think about telemedicine, health tech, ag tech. We think about a lot of our companies that are selling CBD and CBG and CBN in terms of medicines and consumer products. A lot of our companies are servicing the alternative medicine space, the alternative industrial application space. So I think all of those are things that we invest around as a supply chain company. For cannabis, it's a very specific industry that you have to have a lot of focus on in terms of what's going to happen regulatory wise. So for Arcadian, the nice thing is our investors get a little bit of exposure to the ancillary side of that space, but a large portion of our portfolio actually is, in many other categories, as I was mentioning. So it gives a diversified hedged approach for the entire kind of natural wellness space in all consumer categories.
Are you ready to make a career change? Is cannabis your passion? Find the right job at a great cannabis company today with a free account at Vanx.com. Vanx has spent years developing relationships with the top cannabis companies. So whether you're looking for a temporary gig at a music festival like Outside Lands or a C-level position with a large MSO, Vanx makes it easy. Simply upload your resume and credentials at Vanx.com to connect with companies directly. Or talk with one of their expert recruiters. It's all free through the Vanx platform. So what are you waiting for? Get the career you've always wanted by signing up for your free account at Vanx.com. That's VANGST.com. And learn why so many people are proud to work in cannabis. By being in the industry for as long a period as time, you've built up this network with other investors and other groups. So you're seeing these types of deals, the ones that everyone goes, hey, that's something that Matt Group works with. So you're getting a lot of these opportunities that most people wouldn't even see, which gives your team a real leg up on other investors, right?
Well, it certainly does. We work with a lot of great investors from various industries. There are groups that focus on the plant meat space that we work a lot with. We work with a lot of groups that focus on alternative medicines from various parts of the world and various parts of agriculture and plant strains. So we're very fortunate for that. Within the sort of hemp and cannabis space, there are tremendous investors there that we work with as well. But when you say the industry, Dan, to me, that's as a venture capitalist that focuses on plant wellness as a broad category. So it's a very large category. We do work with a lot of investors throughout the country and throughout the world. And we feel very fortunate to be able to have the respect of other investors to co-lead and follow on and help lead deals.
Yeah, and I guess that almost brings with me back to my very first point is the casual investor, has kind of been worked right out of all those sectors that you talked about. It's just really, really difficult to understand them. And even if you do understand them, to be in line to have a shot at them, unless you're working with a group like yours or, some of these other VCs within cannabis or the related industries. In closing, what are some other things that we didn't touch on that are advantages to working with Arcadian?
The great advantage to working with us is how much I think our team has built a reputation for investing in these companies. We really work with companies very closely. I think that's where you gain a lot of advantage when you're with them day to day and you really understand their needs and desires and the various goals that they have at any given time. That is what investors find difficult to do. If you're investing directly yourself, it's hard to spend that amount of time with companies to know the direction that you can help them go. I think additionally, we offer a very diverse approach to a broad category. I think of all the people that you interview, Dan, and so many wonderful investors, I think that all of them focus entirely on the cannabis sector, whereas at Arcadian, we offer that exposure, but a little bit more broad in terms of the ability to hedge oneself into an entire category of plant-based products, supply chain to empower sort of ESG and natural wellness, plant-based consumer applications. And so particularly right now, I think it gives people quite an advantage in terms of the way they invest, but just being present, being alive, and focusing on all the things that we're doing as a firm, just really at this time it's encouraging to be where we are.
Well, I'm going to have all the links to Arcadian Capital in our show notes. So if you're a cannabis company or a plant wellness company that you feel would work well with Matt's team, or if you are considering investing in that space and you want somebody to help you manage your investments, I know somebody from Matt's team would be happy to speak with you. So just click the links in the show notes. Matt, sixth time. It's always great to have you on the show. I look forward to having you on again. Thanks for doing this.
You too, Dan. Thanks for all you do, brother.
Thanks for listening to today's show. To check out more great cannabis podcasts, go to PodConx.com. Here's a preview of one of our other shows.
Hey there, my name is Leah Babrudi, and I'm the founder and host of Cannachicks podcast, where I discuss cannabis, psychedelics, and other natural medicines. I not only interview people who use them as treatment for different conditions, but also the entrepreneurs who share their knowledge on how they built their businesses. If this sounds interesting to you, give my show a listen. I'm sure you'll learn something that'll surprise you.